President Uhuru Kenyatta has appointed his new cabinet that has been sworn in to begin the implementation of the Jubilee Manifesto that swept the coalition into power in the March 4th elections.
The cabinet was sworn in against a backdrop of an expectant nation that is grappling with an ever-increasing cost of living, spiraling insecurity and a wanting healthcare system.
And the countdown begins. The Jubilee government pledged to institute radical changes within its first 100 days in office. The new cabinet is now on the spot.
And President Kenyatta is alive to this expectation. He has told his cabinet that the honeymoon is over. No more talk. It's time to work. This is KTN Prime. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Linda Ogutu. Welcome to the program. American Joker, but first, tonight's highlights. 81% of Kenyans oppose members of parliament salary hike. News Innovate poll indicates.
We must perform. And I believe that each and every one of you has the capacity.
The big task ahead as cabinet nominees are sworn into office.
Mandera ultimatum extended as residents start to surrender arms.
You're not doing enough. UN puts Kenya to task over protection of human rights.
Welcome to this broadcast. A majority of Kenyans are opposed to the push by members of parliament to increase their salaries. According to an opinion poll, most Kenyans support the decision by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to reduce the MP's salaries to a figure slightly above $500,000 mark. And as KTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports, a majority of Kenyans deny ever receiving personal donations from MPs as claimed by the legislators.
Pollsters found that 88% of Kenyans support the move by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to reduce the basic salaries of members of parliament.
10% had the rather interesting sort of complaint. Listen, kabla chaguliwa walijua hii kitu ilitangazwa, so wangekataa kugombea kiti.
11% however backed MPs seeking a pay increment. Most of those who supported the MPs and their demands argue that the salary reduction was unfair, while others claim that the leaders needed more money in order to support their constituents. This last claim would, however, be shattered when 91% of Kenyans said they had not received any personal financial assistance from the MPs. Only 9% admitted that they had received funds from MPs to cover expenses such as school fees, funeral expenses, medical fees, and to finance business ventures. Just over a quarter of Kenyans polled expressed the belief that MPs were seeking a pay increment in order to recoup funds spent on the campaign trail, while 22% thought MPs were interested in securing funds to invest in businesses which would cushion them if they failed to recapture their seats. Nearly half of all Kenyans said they would like to see the salaries of other senior state officials, such as governors, senators, and commissioners, reviewed as well.
Do you know what a senator is getting? Do you know what a governor is getting? Maybe they think because those are new offices, salaries set by SRC, there's no need to undo what the SRC just did.
The poll coming a day after civil society groups marched to Parliament to protest the push by MPs for higher salaries, a move which saw police use force to disperse the protesters.
Where instances of waywardness are manifest, the police will be compelled to take all necessary action and step to restore order and normalcy.
Kenyans now delivering their verdict on the matter. 86% said they would like to see members of the Sarah Sarem-led Salaries and Remuneration Commission carry on with their work. Wilkista Nyabwa, KTN in Nairobi.
Well, President Uhuru Kenyatta's first cabinet was sworn in earlier today. 15 of the 16 cabinet secretaries took the oath of office, with the president urging them to undertake their duties with integrity, professionalism, and in a timely manner. Rita Tinina reports on the ceremony and the task ahead.
James Wenela Masharia. Do swear that I will at all times be faithful to the Republic of Kenya.
A day after Parliament's approval,
so help me God.
15 cabinet nominees were sworn in at State House, Nairobi, in a ceremony witnessed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Amina Mohammed, who is in New York, disengaging from her previous role at the United Nations, will be sworn in at a later date. As the Cabinet Secretaries prepare to take over their dockets,
then I expect you all to discharge your respective mandates with integrity, courage, and utmost professionalism.
And the country's first ever set of Cabinet Secretaries will have no time to celebrate.
The people of Kenya want to see positive transformation in their social and economic lives. They are no longer willing to wait. They are no longer willing to listen to excuses. They are no longer willing to listen to a blame game. We must perform. We have no other choice. We must perform. And I believe that each and every one of you has the capacity.
The President wants his team to support the devolution process as well as drive the realization of Vision 2030. On the insecurity facing various parts of the country,
those who think that they can shake our national security must know that we will take all steps to enable our people go about their national and individual duties peacefully.
Just over a month after he was sworn in, President Uhuru Kenyatta now has his dream team in place. The Cabinet Secretaries already have their plates full and may have to hit the ground running to ensure that the President delivers not just on his 100 days in office pledge, but also on his larger vision for the country. Rita Tinina, KTN, State House.
So the Cabinet Secretaries have been sworn in, and that story leads us to a big question tonight. We're asking you, do you think Uhuru's dream team will succeed? Send your yes or no response, of course, with the brief comment to the number 8040.
And you can also tweet us at KTN Kenya and at Eric Njoka and also at Linda Ogutu. Give us your feedback and tell us what you think about that question. The number is 8040 at KTN Kenya, at Eric Njoka, and at Linda Ogutu. Let's move on. Of course,
we will be sampling some of those at the tail end of this bulletin. Let's shift attention now to insecurity that has been, a lot of Kenyans have been grappling with, and 10 firearms and assorted rounds of ammunition have been surrendered to security agencies in Mandera County in an ongoing voluntary disarmament exercise.
The Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo, has now reciprocated the goodwill by extending amnesty to surrender illicit weapons.
Kimayo has also defended his officers against accusations of inability to control crime by maintaining that crime in the country is not out of control.
While the public is criticizing the police for sleeping on the job, the top cop insists his officers are fighting crime countrywide around the clock.
Crime in the country is not out of control.
Police say security in Garissa and Mandera has been enhanced, and residents from Mandera County are responding positively to the amnesty to surrender illegal arms.
10 firearms and 463 assorted rounds of ammunition have been surrendered.
Police maintain that there will be no night movement for all border operators in Bungoma and Teso. 4 more suspects have been arrested in Bungoma in relation to the attack and murder of a businessman. Over 328 suspects have been tried in court over attacks which occurred in the area. 5 police vehicles have also been allocated to the county to reinforce security operations.
To investigate the alleged existence of Kabuchai Defense Force that is being linked to the ongoing massacre of people in Bungoma and Busia counties.
Yesterday, President Uhuru expressed concern over rising crime in the country and directed that 4 billion shillings be set aside annually for the purchase of equipment for security agencies.
Proper and specialized kitting and equipment will be provided to officers, particularly body armor, night vision goggles.
A section of CORD MPs have contested a weekend directive by Deputy President William Ruto to deploy the military to Mandera to flush out local and foreign militia, terming it unconstitutional.
Even if the cabinet was not complete, Parliament was in place, we should have given Parliament the opportunity to do the necessary consultation for this deployment.
Patrick Amimo, KTN Prime.
You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. And just immediately after this bulletin, John Alanamo will be bringing you perspective, and he will be focusing on the inter-clan wars that have been happening in Mandera. If you have been following that story, the wars have been going on for the last 3 months. We will be trying to figure out why this war is ongoing and why someone just cannot put an end to it. You need to make a date with us for that.
Don't miss it. Let's move on. And Kenya has been put on the spot on its progress in implementing the Prevention Against Torture law.
At the 50th session of the United Nations Committee Against Torture in Geneva, Switzerland, Kenya was put to task over various cases of torture in the country and its laxity to act on the matter.
Masi Kandia reports from Geneva.
And also other places where children...
The United Nations Committee Against Torture was grilling the Kenyan delegation moments after presenting its report to the Geneva-based committee, which put Kenya to task over its implementation of laws that prohibit torture. Some members of the committee arguing that Kenya had failed with the police force put under sharp focus for failing to effectively deal with the Tana Delta killings, Mathare killings, the post-election violence, the GSU personnel harassment of Somali nationals, and extrajudicial killings.
I am pleased to report that since we submitted our last report in 2008,
on its second report to the Committee Against Torture, the Kenyan delegation team led by Attorney General Githu Muigai reiterated the country's commitment to the prevention of torture. While presenting the report to the Committee Against Torture in Geneva, Switzerland on Wednesday, the AG told the committee that the country had made major strides in reforming the country's judiciary and police. Institutions that were previously blamed on Kenya's poor human rights record. Kenya was, however, praised for hosting the largest community of refugees. The country is home to 600,000 refugees, the largest refugee community in the world, and also the passing of acts to do with human rights. The session that lasted for about 2 hours had the Kenyan delegation being grilled. They will, however, have their time to respond to these allegations made by the members tomorrow. Masi Kandia, KTN in Geneva, Switzerland.
From Geneva to the Netherlands, as Deputy President William Ruto and radio presenter Joshua Sang jetted back home from The Hague, the status conference on their cases continued into the second day.
During the session, the Office of the Prosecutor argued against Ruto's application to be exempted from attending his trial hearings physically. KTN's Ashamwilu reports.
The prosecution charged up its argument against an application by Deputy President William Ruto to be allowed to attend his trial at the International Criminal Court via video link. While Ruto's lawyer Karim Khan argued that his client's new responsibilities as Deputy President should be considered, the prosecution threw a new curveball to the argument. The court would be asked to issue arrest warrants for the accused if he does not show up in court physically. But the judge warned that the rights of the accused remained and that it was up to the prosecution to prove them guilty.
Nobody is saying that because the accused has to be present at trial, that there's any other presumption. We're not saying that the presumption shifts.
But it shifts if you have to require somebody who is enjoying presumption of innocence to tell them to be somewhere miles away where they cannot perform their functions.
Ruto's lawyer accused the prosecution of being overzealous in its case and asked the judges to overrule it.
The simple question is whether or not granting this relief would render a fair trial not possible, or whether granting it enhances the proper administration of justice. Your Honor, our submission is very clear.
This argument, however, took a new turn, with the judges questioning whether Ruto decided to vie for the deputy presidency due to his pending trial at the ICC.
And did he put himself forward to be elected to deputy head of state, for which he now won, as you say, the office? Was it before or after the proceedings here were commenced?
The Jubilee coalition was announced after these proceedings were announced.
The judges are now considering Ruto's request and the prosecution's argument before on whether or not to grant Ruto's bid. Ashamwilu, KTN.
Let's bring you back home to your doorstep, literally, and officers from the National Social Security Fund will from next month embark on a door-to-door campaign to check if you have registered your domestic worker with the fund. The fund says beginning next month it will be conducting a nationwide inspection exercise in residential homes.
That's
Authorized compliance officers will be checking if house helps, gardeners, hard boys or drivers, among other domestic workers, have been registered by the end of this month.
NSSF Managing Trustee Tom Odongo says after registration, the employer must remit monthly contributions of 400 Kenya shillings to NSSF without failure. This will enable the domestic worker get the social security cover that includes a number of statutory benefits and grants, including the age, invalidity and survivors benefits. Odongo says they are targeting an estimated 3 million workers to be registered at the close of the exercise.
Listed lender posted an after-tax profit of 2.61 billion shillings in the period that was the period ending March 2013 compared to 1.96 billion shillings. During a similar period last year, the bank's interest expense decreased by 40% to 1.53 billion shillings compared to 2.58 billion shillings in quarter of last year. Also, income from fees and commissions charged on loans and advances almost doubled to 361.1 million shillings. However, Coop Bank's loan book shrank by 14% to 4.85 billion due to the political uncertainties in the first 3 months of this year, which also saw total deposits contract almost by half to about 1.34 billion shillings. And African countries have been urged to work towards reducing their vulnerability to external shocks, especially volatility in the Eurozone, which provides a large market for African exports, Kenya included. According to President Uhuru Kenyatta, despite the difficult global conditions, Africa has maintained its economic resilience and its output is now growing at a faster pace than other regions in the world. Speaking at the Africa Trade Insurance ATI annual general meeting, the President also urged African nations and urged them to remove structural impediments that stand in the way of businesses, as well as lower the administrative barriers that impede trade and investments.
In Kenya, we are improving the policy framework for the private sector, and this was central to my election manifesto as a Jubilee government. Our manifesto, and indeed Kenya's Vision 2030, identifies a number of elaborate policy interventions aimed at enabling, guaranteeing and funding our economy.
Well, let's have a look at how the Kenya shilling is faring and also a look at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, who are today's biggest gainers and losers. Take a look.
It's now time for KTN Sports. Today I am Nicholas Mudimba. Thika United will either face Gor Mahia or Tusker in the final of the top 8 knockout tournament after coming from behind in two-legged tie to beat Chemel Sugar 3-2 on post-match penalties. The Brookside boys, who lost the first leg by a solitary goal, cancelled out Chemel's goal, forcing the match into penalties at Nyayo Stadium. Hassan Juma reports.
With Chemel Sugar on a 1-goal advantage, they pulled the spoilers card as they tried to run down the clock, leaving John Kamau's charges to make inroads but did not bother the Sugar Millers, as Clifton Miheso and Francis Kahata were wasteful up front. When Chemical Sugar ventured up front, they got the best of indentured goal as the teams went for the breather in a barren draw. Thika United continued to look for the all-important goal that could turn the match on its head, and had to wait until the 90th minute before David Kingatua poked in from the edge of the area to send celebration in the stands and a sigh of relief for their coaches. They held on to the post-match penalties. Thika United scored their spot kicks through Vincent Otieno, Sammy Medj and Dennis Odhiambo, while Clifton Miheso and Simon Bugwa's kicks did not find the back of the net. Chemical Sugar's kicks were poked in by Jonathan Moneki and Smith Oko.
From Thika, we know what we are supposed to do. I'm happy. The mental strength of the young boys, you might call them young boys, but mentally, I believe they are tough.
We were unlucky because we created 2 clear chances and we did not use them.
Thika United will now face either Tusker FC or defending champions Gor Mahia, who still have a score to settle in the semi-final, with Tusker holding on to a 1-0 advantage. Reporting for KTN Sports today, I'm Hassan Juma.
And before KTN Perspective comes on board, Ndegwa Wahome, who was the lawyer to the late marathon star Samuel Wanjiru, has challenged the late Wanjiru's manager Federico Rosa to come clean on the late athletes' commissions. Ndegwa, who spoke during the second memorial of the late Olympic champion, claimed that the manager has been evading the family, and efforts to inquire about what was due to the late athlete have not been successful. He asked AK to take up the matter. The late Wanjiru died in his house in Nyahururu following a fall on May 15th, 2011. On that sports, I'm Nicholas Mudimba. Have a good night.